Welcome to Generations at Work, where our goal is to build bridges and not walls between the different generations in the workplace. Today, we're going to continue exploring the book, The Future Begins with Z by Dr. Tim Elmore, and we're going to dive deep into Chapter 10, which is Awakening Ambition and Incentivizing the Gen Zers. I'm Susan Davis. I'm your host, and with us today, your generational expert, Dr. Tim Elmore. Tim, welcome.
Susan, always good to see you. We
Always
need your
good.
face on this podcast because it looks better than my face. Can I
Oh,
just say
no,
that?
we're great compliments together. We're building bridges, Tim. We're building
That's right.
bridges,
That's
right?
right. Absolutely.
Before we dive into this chapter, and I say every chapter is the best chapter, but this one's a really good one too. I just want to tell the audience, thank you for listening. Number one, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us in one of your favorite podcast outlets, if you're interested in learning more about how do I bring this type of information, training, and it's so valuable into my workplace, visit us at maxwell.com/generations at work. Not only that, we've created a bunch of free assets for you, and there's a Generations Work Playbook and a lot of other unique things for you to download. They're absolutely free. Again, maxwellleadership.com, Generations at Work. You can also visit us for bonus materials at thefuturebeginswithz.com. So we're excited you're here. Thank you for joining us. And Tim, let's just jump in. Awakening Ambition, Motivating and Incentivizing Gen Z.
Yeah.
So important, as I'm out in the field working with different clients, I continue to get more and more questions. Man, how do I touch these people? How do I connect with Generation Z? And let's just talk about ambition in this generation.
Yeah.
Why is it something that needs to be awakened in Gen Z rather than just assumed? Hey, and I'm not sure any other generation had ambition. They just had different things they were motivated for. But how do we awaken this in Gen Z? And what is this whole lack of ambition that leaders are talking about with this generation?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. I do hear employers say, it just seems like they just don't want to work.
Yeah.
And I know that's not true, but my digging and my research for this book was so helpful for me as a senior leader myself.
Yeah.
So fact of the matter is, Gen Z actually does want to work. They do have ambition. But like you said, Susan, it's just different than the older generations that would be also in the workplace. So a couple of thoughts. Number one, Susie Welch just released not long ago some research from NYU. She's a research professor there at New York University. And she discovered in her research, get this, that the motivation of Gen Z and the motivation of the employer, only 2% overlap.
Wow.
So when you think about
That's
all the things that
significant,
motivate us, so the employer would typically be motivated by more traditional items like achievement, work ethic, results. That's what John Maxwell always said to me when I went to work for him right out of college.
Get it done.
Gen Z is fine weighing in by saying what I value most is self-care, work-life balance or blending, and then taking care of others. Now, the good news is, leaders, these are not mutually exclusive. Of course, you're wanting to see a little bit more of your stuff in them, but they're wanting to see more of their priorities in you. If we can meet in the middle, I think we've got something. So, Susan, let me tell a quick story before we move on.
Yeah, we love your stories.
Josiah Moore is such a good example of what we're talking about, this gap we feel. So Josiah went up to Canada to go to college. He went to Sheridan College, which is a very prestigious art school. And he was learning great things his freshman year, but he was noticing that tuition was extremely high. So he was kind of caught by the end of the year with, do I keep going and just, mount up about $100,000 of tuition debt, or do I try to work and pay for this as I go? Well, that was a great thing. So Josiah decides to post some of his graphic designs on Kickstarter. By the way, another illustration of the new day we're in. So he's now on a platform that doesn't require some gatekeeper before it's published. So he gets noticed. There's a company in Europe that says, hey, we really like these designs. Why don't you do some part-time work for us? Josiah thinks, perfect. I'll go to school part-time. I'll work part-time. Well, before the end of the year, Susan, this company in Europe says, we like your work so much, we'd like to employ you full time. So Josiah has you know, a decision to make. Do I continue on good classes, but very expensive, where I'm paying to work, or do I get paid to work and probably learn as much or more? I know it's kind of a no-brainer, but think about it. He told me in the interview I had with him, Tim, I was learning more, no cut to Sheridan, doing the work, actually doing it, than I was going to class about it. So he chooses to work full time. He made a bunch of money. He's still working there. He's for education. But let me summarize the takeaways we get from Josiah's story. Number one, he gets to boss his own calendar. That's kind of nice in your 20s.
Yeah.
Number two, he gets to choose how he's going to use his gifts. That's nice. Number three, he posts his work in order to get noticed. That's the world we're in, employers.
Yes.
Four, he works hard. He has ambition because he owns the work. And that's what we want to get to in this interview. And then finally, he gets to figure it out on his terms. So Josiah would say, if he were here with us today, I do have ambition, but it completely multiplied when I began to go after something I felt gifted to do, I wanted to do, and I got to kind of boss my own calendar. So really different world we're in.
You know, and I think as leaders, especially Gen X, right? We're in a lot of the leadership positions now as our boomers are starting to phase out at 10,000 a day retiring. Is that we have got to change the way that we do work, and we've got to change the way that we're leading this next generation. As you have told us, 75% of the workforce is Millennial and Gen Y now. If we're not keeping up, we're going to be left behind. And so, you know, and this is the thing that I'm learning from you too, is that Gen Z, they look at success differently than previous generations. And I even wonder if this comes back fold, because I look at it differently now that I'm in my mid-50s, right? It's no longer success, it's significance. But how does Gen Z, how are they defining success differently than the other generation? And then how does that motivate them differently?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts come to my mind. I'm hoping these are worthy of the listeners that are listening right now. A couple of things are big in terms of what provides their sense of motivation. We have to admit, one of them is social media. So by 13 years old, maybe even sooner, they're on social media platforms and they're getting all kinds of TikTok posts and so forth that may not be attached to reality at all. So some of it is a very disingenuous, crazy view of reality. Let's just be honest. In fact, no matter what age we are, if we're on certain platforms, it's just crazy out there, okay? But the other one is mom and dad. So they're young adults now. As they were in school, mom and dad, well, first of all, they looked at mom and dad and they saw one or both really worshiping their work. Not everybody, but Susan, you and I both love our work. So our kids could look at us and say, wow. But too many of them would say, my dad ruined our Christmas because he was working all through the holiday or whatever, or ruined our family, maybe. I want to be very careful here, but when they look at older generations, as we mentioned before,
but John's talked about that. John has talked about that in his early
no
career.
doubt about it. Yeah. So there was an imbalance. They want a balance. So tell you a quick story. I know one employer who was walking by the office of one of her young professionals in her 20s, and she looked in the little window into her office and she saw her sobbing. So she opened the door, she knocked on the door and then opened it, says, "Are you okay?" And this young professional was just sobbing. And she said, why are you crying? And this young woman basically said, I want so much to take on the extra tasks that you have given me, but I feel like now it's keeping me away from my two kids. Susan, you felt this before as a mom.
I coached a recent HR professional, the same question, same thing.
So she was torn. It wasn't that she didn't have ambition. She was a jazeer that happened to be a mom of two, and I don't know, but she might have been a single mom. So she's really feeling like she has to take on more, or she may lose her job or may lose any kind of upward movement in her career. So the nuance that Gen Z faces, listeners, is a suspicion that their boss may not have their best interests in mind as humans. And I really believe, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, if we will lean in as leaders and communicate, we do want the best for you as a person, not just a worker bee here, then I think that causes them to lean in a bit more and say, I trust you to look after me. I'm going to look after my job now. And they may show a little bit more ambition and motivation when we do that.
You know, and that's level 2 leadership, right? Help, care, trust. Does my leader help me, care about me, trust me?
Yeah.
And I will tell leaders, listen, if you're not connecting with that person, and especially the younger generation, what level of leadership do you sit on with them? If you don't have the relationship and show them that you care, how are they going to, want to lean into you and help? Now, I want to shift. Daniel Pink, our friend, great leadership expert, wrote a book called Drive, and he talks about no longer motivated by that carrot and stick, reward punishment thing. And Gen Z is no different. And these traditional incentives are failing with Gen Z.
Yeah.
Why are they falling flat?
When I started my career, it really was carrots and sticks in most workplaces. So listeners, if you're figuring out what are we talking about this, carrots would be the thing that is hanging in front of a racehorse, or whatever. He's going for the carrot. That's a reward.
I think
Or
about the
stick-
racetrack. Yeah.
That's right. Or the stick on his behind, meaning he's afraid of punishment. So it used to be we were pushing for rewards and afraid of punishment. But Dan Pink, brilliantly in his book Drive, summarizes what I think we need to understand about every generation, but certainly the youngest generation who've grown up in the 21st century. So he talks about 3 ideas, listeners, that I'd like you to think about. Number 1 is autonomy. Every team member, particularly young team members, wants to be able to operate without being micromanaged or standing over their shoulder, making sure they get it right, making sure you're actually working and you're not on, Instagram or whatever.
That trust,
We want autonomy. So that communicates trust. Number 2 is mastery. Every team member, particularly young ones who don't really feel respected right away when they start their job, believe that they need to believe that they're improving and mastering something. So we need to give them things that they can actually be upwardly mobile and feel like I'm mastering a task. They won't stay if they feel like they're just average and really not making a difference. And then thirdly, purpose. This is gigantic. It would be difficult to overestimate the power of a sense of purpose. So more than just generating revenue in the first quarter of the year, it's a sense of purpose that the team member believes they're contributing to the bigger picture and they're making the community a better place.
Yeah.
So I want to tell another quick story.
Yeah.
I have worked a lot with school systems, colleges, high schools, middle schools. And I'll never forget going to Allen, Texas, outside of Dallas. And they had a school there. They have a school there that really builds work skills, career skills into their curriculum. So reading, writing, arithmetic for sure, but this life skill thing. Well, one young man transferred from a different high school that he was close to dropping out. It wasn't because he was dumb. He just wasn't motivated. Here we are again.
Yep.
He went to this school and began to see that what I'm studying here is actually going to pay off in my career. So he got into culinary arts. He loved kitchens and cooking, okay? So as a high school senior, final year of his high school, he was a part of a high school student team that put on a huge banquet for parents and board members, district members.
Yeah.
It was hundreds of them. It was all run by teenagers. They set the tables, the tablecloths, they cooked the food, they waited the tables, they poured the drinks. Wow. What I love about this young man was if you watched him that night, you would have thought he was getting paid. And he wasn't getting paid. He's a student.
He was living in his purpose.
Yes, he was. And so here's what I'm leading up to. One of the principals walked over to him, and at the end of the night, it was probably 11 o'clock. Sweat is beating down his brow. And the principal said, I bet you're really tired, aren't you? Just trying to empathize. And he said, oh, but I love tonight. This was the best day of my life. I thought to myself, a kid from Gen Z, not getting paid a dime in this particular setting, said this is the best of my life because he got to connect who he was and what his gifts were with a sense of purpose. So I don't know if this sounds cliche, but we've got to do this better if we're going to retain and motivate these young team members.
Two things, Tim, here. I think, I left the corporate world about 3 years ago or so, and I feel like I'm now living in my purpose. And I tell my clients all the time, I don't feel like I work a day in my life anymore. I feel like when you're in your purpose, right, your gifts, and it's not work anymore, and you're incentivized to even work harder. But I talk about this with some of my clients, is that we have to figure out with our people, what is their purpose, what drives them. If I lead you based on mine, there's not the connection there. And especially older generations that are used to, we just come into work, get it done, get home. We've got to change this narrative. So what kinds, and this is one of the things I try to coach my people on. Not everybody's motivated by the same thing. People need different incentives. So what are some other non-monetary incentives that actually matter to Gen Z? We often overlook them as leaders, right? We think, oh, money's just fine. But we know that's not true. So give us some hints. Listeners, readers, or if you're watching, write these down, implement them into your workforce. So take it away. I know there's some good ones.
Yeah. Well, let me begin by saying money is extremely important to Gen Z.
Well, love doesn't pay the light bill. My dad used to tell me that, right? Love doesn't pay the light bill.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they are savvy enough, having grown up in a world of social media, to know that the gap between the salary they might have and the cost of living is very, very big, bigger than when I graduated college. So money is important. Just know that. In fact, they may be asking for more money than you want to give them.
Just because
they're now asking for things like, I just had an employer say, or an HR person say, I had one Gen Zer ask for pet insurance as part of the compensation package because they had a dog. Yeah. So, wow. Okay. That wasn't part of my package out of college, but so anyway, let me underscore a couple of other things besides monetary motivation. One is skill development. They want to feel like they're growing and building a skill set. So they might even be okay lateral moves in the company if they feel they're building new skill sets.
Good.
They want visibility. They want to be seen and recognized as adding value. This is huge to a young professional. They come in feeling a little disrespected. And let's be honest, we all were at 22. It's like,
we all
we're not
were.
the president yet, Josh, But they want to feel seen and recognized for what they're adding. Mentorship is another big one. So they want to feel like you're not a manager to them alone, you're a mentor. So I've said this before, but make sure you're coaching and pouring into them, investing in them.
That's
and
good.
then one more quick one before I share a story. They want to feel like they're given some flexibility and autonomy because, once again, that communicates trust to them. Now, I would say, in all fairness to both sides, if they ask for that, say, you know what, I want to give you that. Tell them that. I want to give you that. Let's go 90 days and you earn it. And then you can underscore the fact that you make everybody earn it, right? Nobody just automatically gets that. But show me you can bear fruit. Show me you can get results without being right here, and I'm going to give you a little more flexibility. Productivity leads to autonomy. So that's just huge. Now, one of our Habitude images that I just love illustrates what we're wanting from them. So I call it the Waldorf principle. I'm not sure if I ever shared this on this.
I haven't heard this one,
Okay.
But I know it has something to do with the hotel.
That's right. Exactly. So decades ago, a young man named George Bolt was at a motel in Pennsylvania, and his boss, the owner of the motel, gave him a little autonomy. He said, George, I want you to be my night manager, and I want you to do whatever you must do to please the guest. I mean, now up to you can't give $1,000 away, but just do whatever. I want you to serve them well. Well, so George is this young teammate behind the front desk when late one night, an elderly couple walks into the motel, and it's pouring down rain. So they're wet, they're drenched, they close up the umbrella, but they're just wet. They walk up to the front desk and ask this young man, George, if they can have a room. George has to say to them, I am so sorry. There's a big convention here in town. All the rooms are taken. I'm sorry. But as George watches this elderly couple walk out of the motel, he thinks to himself, I can't send them out on the rain. There's no vacancies anywhere here in town.
And thinking about his leader, what he said.
Yeah, that's right. He's thinking about his leader said, you can please the guest. So anyway, George says to the elderly couple, wait, come back here. You can have my room.
Wow.
And the couple said, what? I thought you said you have no more rooms. He said, I don't, but I have a room right off the side of this motel, and the sheets are clean, the towels are fresh. You can have my room tonight. And they said, we're not going to take your room. That's ridiculous. George said, no, I'm fine. And I'll just sleep right here on the floor. It's no big deal. And he convinces the couple to stay there.
Wow.
Well, you can imagine in the morning, the elderly couple gets up, comes out, and the elderly man says, what is your name, son? And the clerk said, well, George Bold. And this elderly man wrote it down and said, I'm writing your name down because last night you served me extravagantly and sacrificially. 2 key words. It was way over the top, above your job description, and you sacrificed something. You sacrificed your own night's sleep to allow us to sleep here. And then the man said, one day I plan on building the finest hotel in the world. And when I do, I'm going to reach back to you and have you manage it. And with that, Mr. Waldorf Astor walked out of that motel, later built the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City, sent a one-way train ticket up for the George Bold to come up. He showed him on the outside of the hotel and said, George, this is your hotel. Now, here's what I love about that story.
Gives me chill bumps.
Yes, it's a powerful story. But what I love about it is George didn't show necessarily great strategy on building a business or high IQ or extra talent. What he did was what any of us can do. Extravagant, sacrificial. So I think we need to challenge Gen Z to not just do their job description. That would be mundane and maybe even rather boring. Do the 6 things on this piece of paper. I believe George was motivated by and motivated this couple. So this may sound crazy, listeners, but I want you to stay with me. I began to think through, how do people motivate others?
Yeah.
And I came up with 7 ideas from worst to first. So I'm going to give you, if you're taking notes or making mental notes, the worst way that people do it all the way to the best way. So number 7, the worst, would be, I think, summarized best with the word force. Let's look around the world and you're going to see some people, actually some nations, forcing other nations to do what they want them to do. People feel threatened as you induce pain. They act unwillingly, but you forced them to. This happens in countries. It happens in bad marriages. And folks, it happens in companies that have a horrible boss that doesn't know any other way to get his way than to force you. Number 6, a little bit better, but not great, is manipulation. Haven't we all felt manipulated before by someone? Maybe they didn't even know they were doing it, but this is where people feel coerced, as if they're backed into a corner. You're not stealing from them, but you're also making them feel horrible, and they feel like, I got to do it. I'm manipulated. Number 5, a little bit better, intimidation. Now, you can still see this is a negative word, but intimidation is slightly better in that now there's nobody's smacking anybody, nobody's doing anything like that, but people feel emotionally bullied. I have been intimidated before. Susan, I bet you have too.
Every day.
And again, the boss or the person doing it may not be aware they're doing it, but this happens all the time when the leader runs out of ideas and they just, it's where people fear they might be fired if they don't do this, right? Okay. Now,
I
number
said every
4.
day. I don't really mean that right now. I meant in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know my leaders listening here. Yeah.
Well, isn't it true? There's an old phrase, fights start when you run out of ideas. It's so true. And I think we do these negative motivations when we just don't know how to inspire or truly motivate. So number 4 is right in the middle of these 7. I call it exchange. And this is the transactional motivation that happens every day. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. You work for me 40 hours this week, I give you a paycheck. Nothing evil about this, but it's very neutral. It's a transaction. You give and receive, right? That's easy, but I want to now give you the top 3 ways to inspire other people. Number 3 on this list of 7 is persuasion. Now, it's interesting. The word persuasion is taken from 2 root words, through sweetness. This is where you show the sweetness of what you're asking them to do. You're persuading them by showing you do this and you're going to like it. You're going to be moved to cooperate through the incentives I provide.
Wow.
So it's not just a paycheck. They see they're going to get better as people. They're going to love the camaraderie they feel as a team. They're going to love the feelings they get when the results come. So persuasion. Number 2 is motivation. And that's really the theme of this interview here. Motivation is where people are inspired by your passion and they are willing to sacrifice for the results. And I tell you what, my first full-time job out of college was none other than John C. Maxwell. John knew how to motivate me. I wanted to go way beyond the job description he gave me, which was rather simple at first. But you know, John, he starts giving you more if you do a good job. So I had 4 or 5 jobs by the time I was done. But I always wanted to do them because he was so motivating.
And
Now,
you show up differently for people that motivate you,
do.
right? People that persuade
you really
you.
do.
Yeah.
I feel like John would say the people that stayed there showed up differently. They were better because of his leadership.
That's so
Now,
good.
this leads me to number 1. I'm sorry this has taken so long, but
It's
the
okay,
first
it's good.
one is what we see in George Bolt, this young motel manager. I love the word honor. Honor. I think the best leaders actually honor the people that are under them, that are in their sphere or their circle of influence. People follow you as you respect them. They respect you. You value them. They value you. You honor them through service. So think about George Bolt. He doesn't know this old couple. All he thinks is, I got a couple of 75-year-old people or whatever they were, walking in a motel, wet, drenched. He didn't expect to get anything back, but boy, did he get something back as he honored them. And Susan, think about the 5 levels.
I was
thinking now.
just mapping those.
We'll talk about that a minute. Talk about how this fits into those 5 levels.
Yeah. You know, I look at that honor almost as level 5, right? People follow you because you just have so much influence over them. You've done everything well. You've built relationships. You've produced results. You've mentored, coached, and developed, and you've done it for a long time. And you've built such a level of influence with these people. Man, they just show up differently.
Yeah, it's true. You're right.
They show up I was just mapping it to 5 levels and how, wow, this progression, because those first one are level 1 leaders. They're positional leaders. You get a paycheck.
right.
If you want a paycheck, do what I say.
Yep.
Right?
It's
And
true.
nobody wants to work in that, right? We want to work in an environment that we feel honored and motivated and persuaded to do good things for people.
That's why I love the phrase, the ultimate test of a leader is to act as if all your people are volunteers. If there's no money exchange, would you lead differently? You bet you would, because I don't want you to leave me here. And I just love that. That's kind of an acid test. Yeah.
You know, that reminds me of a story that I heard John Maxwell tell one time. He was mentoring a high-level CEO, and the CEO had a position that he just couldn't decide who to give it to. It was a pretty high position. He had 3 candidates, and he said, John, I just don't know who to give this to. And John said, this is the easiest thing in the world. I want you to put them all in volunteer positions for 3 months in the community. You'll absolutely see who your leader is in less than 3 months.
Yeah.
The gentleman did that, and he said in less than a month that he found his next leader, because when people follow you because they want to, right? You're honoring them, you're motivating, you're persuading them, you're leading at such a high level. That's true leadership. It's not positional. And so this particular person he was coaching found his next leader just because of the way he served his people. And I think that's so, one of the things I tell my clients, if you can just add value to people and serve or lead them where they are, right? And do those things that's not a positional leadership, you're going to go a lot further with them. So, want to kind of just move as we're winding down time, but this is something that I hear in the field, so I think it's important. When Gen Z, I think, has some high expectations for promotions and things of that, and I hear this all the time. Man, they want a promotion 6 months after they started. How do we talk about timelines and promotion and career paths? We got to keep this ambition alive, but we've got to keep it realistic as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So very often, not all the time, but often, Gen Zers are wanting something probably more than their experience warrants and quicker. So you want to have that conversation, the sooner the better. In fact, maybe even in the job interview. For instance, in the interview, you might say, now listen, I'm sure you're going to want a promotion. I'm sure you're going to want a pay increase, and we want to give that to you. However, let me explain how we work here. And you're going to explain something that's sensible, but they may come in, if it's their first job, with a very unsensible expectation.
Yeah.
So just know you need to right size their expectations, perhaps, but give them a clear path. Within 6 months, this can happen. Within 9 months, this can happen. Here's a promotion, a new title, and here's a pay increase. If they have a path, they're much more apt to stay.
That's so
Now,
good.
2 quick ideas. When I did my research for this book on Generation Z, I noticed people are inspired or motivated in different ways. Number one is the perception of dispensability. Now, let me explain that. I talked to 2 NCAA Division I athletes, one male, one female, one football player, and one swimmer, a relay team swimmer. That was the female. When I talked about the motivation of the football player, he admitted that season he had given kind of a half-baked effort. He admitted it. It was after the season, so he was going to graduate, so he thought, I'm going to be honest. And I said, why did you give a half-baked effort? And here's what he told me. In his own words, he said, well, I knew I had 2 All-American linemen right next to me on the defensive line. So I figured, you know what? They're awesome. So I'm going to count on them. So his motivation was decreased by good people around him. Isn't that weird?
Interesting.
But he thought, I can give less because everybody expects them
Yeah.
to give more. They're going on to the NFL. The swimmer was completely different. Her teammates inspired her to do better because they were there. It was a great relay team, and she said, I don't want to let my teammates down. That's why I try extra hard.
I love that.
So just keep in mind that their perception of how dispensable or indispensable they are may have a lot to do with how motivated they are. You need to let them know, we need you to pull this thing off. Make sense?
I love it.
Number 2 is the triggers we have. So there's 3 basic triggers that motivate us: affiliation, results, and influence. Think about the people you know on your team. Some people are motivated by affiliation. They just love the people around them. They love working as a team. These are my buddies. These are my BFFs. And so I know some of my team members, if you just put them together, they're going to have a great time. We hope they reach the goal, but they're going to have a good time together, okay?
That might be me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The second one is results. This is me. I am so inspired with or without a team next to me to get to results. If that's what you got, you need to make sure you hang that carrot out in front or that motivation. We're going to get these results, and it's going to make sure we increase revenue or results. The third one is influence. Now, influence is kind of like a combo of the first 2.
Yeah,
They want to get to results, but they want to do it together.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, I think very quickly, Aaron, that's John Maxwell. He wants to get results, but he wants to do it as a team. So just know, listeners, you need to read your people before you lead your people. Some are just need to be affiliated with others. Some are just going to be turned on by getting to the goal, and then some are going to be turned on by getting it done together. Influence.
good.
So I'll stop there. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. I feel like we could go 20 more minutes, but for the sake of time, but listeners, stay with us. I'm going to ask 2 more questions because I like for people to be able to take away, what can I apply, change, and teach? What can I act on? So if a leader wants to reignite ambition on their team this quarter, what is one practice they should start and what's one they should stop?
Wow. Well, if we're talking about leading our teams, like you just said, it might be slightly different based on the generation. So this is called generations at work, right? Boomers, for many, 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 even millions of boomers, their job is their central focus.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes so central it prevailed over personal health and so forth. So just know they might be incentivized with a work-related, maybe monetary related, maybe corner office, right? You get the corner office, Bob, if you do this. For Gen Xers, the job is a necessity, so they want to find something they like. But remember, and Susan, this is your generation.
Yes.
You grew up as a generation a little skeptical because you saw the warts and wrinkles of corporate America, government leaders, even militarily. We were failing in Vietnam and so forth. So I would say motivating Gen Xers are to give them a little bit more liberty which every generation wants, but scream to them in a great way, I want to give you all the liberty you're looking for because I so need you in this management position, and I want to let you do it your way. Millennials, the job is a place to serve. So motivate them by showing how we're improving the community. We're changing the world as we do this. Now, Gen Zers, remember we talked about this before. The job is a hobby. Now, it's not, but they like to see it as a hobby where I do it because I love it. I'm very picky, and they are very picky. And they're fearing getting a job that they hate. Just know that one of their biggest fears is I'm going to get a job I can't get out of. I'm hating it now.
They're not going to be able to do what they want to do. Yeah.
That's right. So if we can somehow profile the job like it was a hobby, you don't have to use that word, but as if it's something they're passionate about and they can do their best work, perhaps at 9 p.m., not 9 a.m., we can make all the difference in the world. How could we turn work into play for those Gen Zers?
And we're going to have to. If we want to sustain, if we want good people on our team, we don't want the revolving door, we're going to have to change the way we lead. It's just the way we're going to have to. All right. Another question. ACT here, Act, Change, and Teach. What systems can help us sustain ambition long term? And I think this one's really important because I think a lot of people hire somebody and then they let them go. They don't touch them again.
It's so true.
There's some systems we got to put in place as leaders, like coaching and stuff. But give us those, Tim.
Okay, real quick. I would, if I were you and I had Gen Z team members like you do, 3 thoughts real quick. One, don't appeal to their sense of duty, but to the significance of the task. My generation was motivated by, I need to be dutiful and punctual and show good work ethic. And we all want that from everybody, but I would say don't appeal to their sense of duty. Appeal to the significance of the task and show them how that task they're doing connects to the big picture. Number 2, don't appeal to majority rules, but to equity for everyone. One of their huge values is it's equitable here for everyone, every race, every gender, etc. So it's not a democracy. Don't say, well, the majority wants this. Show how everyone's going to benefit if you make this decision. Equity prevails in the office.
How we communicate that's going to be huge, yes.
That's true. That's very true, yeah. And then lastly, don't appeal to morals, but to the benefit they're going to receive by doing this. Their ambition is sometimes myopic. In other words, I'm ambitious for me going forward, not just the company. So know that, show them the benefit they're going to have. So quick story as I close. I love how Gary learned to do this with Suzanne. Gary's a supervisor, Suzanne's a Gen Zer, and in the break room one day, they spontaneously said hello. Gary had not really gotten to know his young team member, Suzanne, yet. So he asked her, how you doing? Well, instead of just saying fine, she decides to give a full sentence. And so she offers an answer, and Gary got intrigued, and it's so good that he did.
Curiosity.
Because, that's right, curiosity. They end up sitting down for an hour. Now, you don't always have this time, I realize, but thank God Gary took this hour. He got to know Suzanne and what made her tick, and he learned that she was mildly engaged at work, but was actually looking outside for work. He found out later. But when he engaged with her, found out what made her tick, and just spontaneously chatted with Susan, and she felt valued. Gary discovered her passions, her interests, her strengths. It was a milestone moment. Susan ended up staying and now manages a team under Gary.
So good.
Leveraging, and she would say that day was the difference maker. And it was the connection Gary made that motivated her.
That's so good. I created a unified team chart is what I call it for my teams I work with. And it has like their personality style, their strengths, their struggles, their career ambitions, their working genius, their motivators, all these things. So leaders understand, how do I lead Susan different than Gary or Tim or Wade, or how do I do that and make it personalized? Because you've said, and I agree, I think this generation, Gen Z, I think they can change the world in so many ways. They're small but mighty, and I just have this hope in them. And you've mentioned as we close out, this generation has a keen sense of leadership. So if we can awaken their ambition properly and guide them, what kind of leaders do you think they're going to become?
Oh, incredible leaders, because they've also learned from what was wrong in the current leaders. Well, they look around themselves and they see people on power trips, unfortunately. Not all the time, but unfortunately. So if we can show them you lead by serving and you serve by leading, that's the kind of leaders I think they want to be. And they told me in the focus groups, we want to bring a new kind of leadership to the workplace.
good.
And that's what it was. So I'm very hopeful for the future.
So good. I hope this has inspired our listeners and leaders. If you're out there saying, where do I start? Because listen, this is a lot of stuff, right? Visit us at maxwell.com/generations at work. Give us information. If you want to learn, how do we bring this in here? Because what we're trying to do is help you change the culture of your workplace to make it where there is purpose and passion and productivity. Again, visit us at maxwellleadership.com/generations at work. You can also find a lot of free and just very helpful downloads for you as you lead the next generation and all the generations, because that's what we're trying to do, is build bridges and not walls. Tim, thank you again. Excellent book. If you have not seen this book, it is The Future Begins with Z by Dr. Elmore. I highly suggest it. You will read it back and forth. It's like a textbook of what should I do. So we appreciate you, Tim, and we will see you on the next podcast. We appreciate you joining us.